Hi, I'm Faye, and here on Bookish Brits today we're discussing Let It Snow by John Green, Maureen Johnson and Lauren Myracle as our book club book. This book is 3 short stories which are sort of holiday romances. Each story is connected in some way, although completely separate on its own as well. I don't know how to summarise it up really greatly, so I'm just going to read the back cover for you all. It's Christmas Eve and Gracetown has been buried by snow, but the weather is more than just an inconvenience. When one girl unexpectedly steps off a stranded train, she sets off a series of life-changing events. Soon, 14 pumped-up cheerleaders will descend on the local Waffle House, the Duke's DVD nights will be rudely interrupted for a Twister mission, and a lovesick barrister will determine the fate of a single teacup pig. As the 3 stories collide, strangers cross paths and romance blossoms with heartwarming consequences. Okay, so here are the questions.
Really enjoyed Let It Snow overall. I'm not really a big lover of short stories, but this was great for putting me in the mood. It made me feel really Christmassy and it was really cute and I thought it was really emotional. My favourite story by far is definitely the first one by Maureen Johnson, The Jubilee Express. From start to finish I thought it was funny and adorable and I absolutely love the writing style.
I have to say that I was expecting good things from this book. I have previously read both John Green and Maureen Johnson, although Laura Myracle is a new author to me. I have had this book recommended to me on a number of occasions by fellow UK book bloggers, but actually this is the first time I've picked it up. And it's also the first YA Christmas story that I've ever come across. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed how, although each of the stories is distinct in its own right, I love the common thread that joined them all together. While I was expecting the big snowstorm that's mentioned in the synopsis, I was pleasantly surprised to see that characters that we met in one book would be introduced to us in more detail in later stories, and I thought it was a really fantastic way of knitting all 3 stories together, so it actually felt like one just much larger kind of full-size book rather than 3 distinct novellas. Yeah, so fantastic read. I definitely think that I will pick it up again next year to help me get into the festive spirit. While I did enjoy all of the stories in this trilogy of novellas, my favourite story was actually The Jubilee Express by Maureen Johnson. Each of the stories were romantic and heartwarming, with really touching moments and funny moments and twists and turns that you weren't expecting. But for me, it just gelled the most with the very first story in the trilogy, and that was the story of Jubilee and Stuart. I just loved the 2 of them together, and although each of the stories had their own sort of underlying message about romance and relationships, I particularly enjoyed the message behind Rachel and Stuart's relationship, how not all relationships are good for you, and looking for the right thing within a relationship, making sure that is a sort of balanced and fair relationship.
I really enjoyed reading Let It Snow as part of this month's book club. It was really nice to read 3 short stories in the run up to Christmas. They really helped me get into the Christmassy mood. I really enjoyed the book as a whole. I liked how the 3 stories were kind of interlinked and a lot of the same characters cropped up, and minor characters in one story would turn out to be major characters in another story. I really like that element of it. I think the 3 writers worked really well to deliver 3 separate stories, but then 3 stories that worked well in the context of a whole novel. It was interesting actually, because this is the first thing I've ever read from John Green, which I know everyone is probably going to go crazy about, but I've got all of his books, but this is the first thing by him I've ever read, and luckily I really loved it, so I'm looking forward to trying some more of his stuff over the holidays. It was actually my favourite story, so the one I enjoyed the most was, what was it called? The Cheertastic Christmas Miracle, which might as well win as the best story just for the title alone, but that one was my favourite. I really loved it.
On a whole, Let It Snow was not what I hoped it would be. I enjoyed it to an extent, but I felt that the first story was the best story and it went a little bit downhill from there. So my favourite story has definitely got to be The Jubilee Express. I absolutely adore Maureen Johnson's writing style, and Jubilee is just such a funny character
And that was kind of what I was hoping from the whole book.
So I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was a really cute read. I really liked the difference between the different stories and how they were all connected in some way, but you couldn't work out how until it was in the story. And I just think it was really cute and really nice to read about, and it was a really interesting book that I've never really read a short story collection before, and I think it really worked, and just really enjoyed it. I think my favourite story is definitely the first story, which is called The Jubilee Express by Maureen Johnson. I just think it was so much cuter and more romantic than the others, and I actually just really connected with it in a better way, and I just really enjoyed it.
My favourite character in the entire book was actually a secondary character called Debbie. She is Stuart's mum, and I really loved that she was so open and friendly and completely embarrassing, the way all good mums should be. I loved that she was actually a Jewish character, but that she celebrated Christmas wholeheartedly, and I really loved that she kind of represented all the good things about the festive season, about opening your arms and your hearts to other people, about prioritising family, taking care of each other, and I really loved her as a character. Not only that, but I couldn't help but smile in every single scene that she was in.
Jubilee has definitely got to be my absolute favourite character in this book. She is so funny and so likeable, and I have to admit I have a real soft spot for Stuart as well. I feel Jubilee is more a relatable character than any of the other characters in the story, and Stuart in a sense too, because they're two people in very unusual circumstance, but they are still very much down to earth people, and I think that's one of the reasons I really like them.
In the same vein of my favourite story, I think my favourite character in the book is definitely Jubilee. I think she's just such a fun and fiery character, and clumsy, and just doesn't shut up, and I just think there's a really interesting character to read about, as there's quite a lot of people who are sort of the similar and they feel like they're making a fool of themselves, and I just really like that. I think that's a really nice thing. I just really enjoyed that about this book.
I think my favourite character of all three books was Stuart, just because he was so lovable. He was just really down to earth and genuine, and I love the way he kind of saved Jubilee, and his backstory made me feel quite sorry for him, and I just wanted to give him a big Christmas cuddle.
There are some really interesting characters in the book, but I think my favourites are Debbie and Rachel, who are the mum and sister in the first story. I liked their dialogue, and I thought they were brought to life really well, especially the little sister. She was adorable. But my favourite character overall was JP from the second story, from the John Green story. He was sort of the best friend of our protagonist, and was particularly excited by the prospect of cheerleaders, and I just loved his dialogue and his humour, and I thought he was great.
My favourite scene in this, again, everything is about the Jubilee Express. My favourite scene is from the Jubilee Express. They've both fallen into what is essentially a frozen stream, and the way in which Jubilee describes what is happening just had me in absolute stitches. I'm grinning now because I'm laughing just thinking about it. So you have such terms as the Department of Temperature Acknowledgement and Regulation, who then pass it on to the Department of Pain and the processing thereof, and so on and so forth. It's just the way it's broken down and the way it's told just made me laugh so much.
My favourite scene is from a cheertastic Christmas Miracle quite near the beginning, when they've just had the phone call to say that the cheerleaders are in the Waffle House and the boys are running around trying to get ready in time to beat everybody else to get to the cheerleaders, and the girl that they're with, she is just not interested. She's just still sitting there watching TV, and the guys are running up and downstairs and getting changed and looking in the mirror and talking about being fabulous and checking out their best t-shirts, and it was a little bit of role reversal from the kind of normal stereotype, and it really made me laugh that the girl just couldn't care less and was just sitting there chilling out, and it was the boys who were preening in the mirror. There's some really great dialogue in that scene as well between everybody, and I really enjoyed that one. That was my favourite. I was laughing out loud the whole way through it.
My favourite scene from all 3 books comes from John Green's story, The Cheertastic Christmas Miracle, and it's quite near the end where basically in the story the boy's having a race to see who can get to the Waffle House the quickest because there's a group of cheerleaders there, and obviously who wouldn't want to spend Christmas with cheerleaders. And it's kind of 3 sets of people all having a big race to see if they can get there first, and some of them are sledging down the top and the others are running and some are in a car, and I just found it really visually amazing and the whole scene just really made me chuckle, so it's definitely my favourite.
I think my favourite scene would have to be the scene in the second story when they're in the car and they're driving to the Waffle House and they end up skidding on the ice. And because I'm a driver and I've sort of been through a steering in ice sort of course, I knew that they were doing all wrong, and I was just screaming at the book and giggling and finding it really funny, and I just really liked that scene. I mean, there are so many great scenes within the entire book, but yeah, I remember that one quite a lot, and I would say that was definitely my favourite one of the bunch.
I actually found this last question quite difficult because I don't think I've read any other YA that's set at Christmas. I know I've read a couple of chick lit books set around Christmas time, but I don't think I've read any YA that is, apart from these. That being said, I can't give this as a personal recommendation because I haven't read it, but everybody always tells me to read Dash and Lily's Book of Dares, so that's my recommendation. Also, each of the authors featured in this book has had a lot of novels published, so if you enjoyed one in particular, then there's plenty of other stuff they've written that you could enjoy. Personally, I really love reading Roald Dahl at Christmas. I know it's nothing to do with this book, but I think any readers enjoy Roald Dahl, and I always love reading his stuff around Christmas time, so that is my recommendation for you all.
The only other festive YA book I can think of is Dash and Lily's Book of Dares by Rachel Cohen and David Levithan. I read this quite recently and I thought it was really adorable. I did have a couple of issues with it, but overall it was really great and it's festive too. Although I haven't read any myself, I would also recommend Maureen Johnson's other books because I really adored the way she writes, so I would definitely recommend if you enjoyed this story too, then check out her others like I'm going to, hopefully. Other than that, my other recommendation to read at this time of the year is Harry Potter. Although it's not really Christmassy, Christmas itself is all about the magic for me, and what better magic than Harry Potter? Also, the long holidays are a perfect time to reread them all.
I would definitely recommend anything by Maureen Johnson, absolutely anything. I mean, any of her contemporary writing I have read, which isn't a lot, I've absolutely loved, and even her more paranormal-y stuff is awesome. So I would highly recommend anything by Maureen Johnson if you liked Let It Snow. And if you just want something really nice, contemporary, not necessarily wintry, maybe something like Amy Rogers' Epic Detour, or From What I Remember, which are both really funny, quirky books that really appeal to fans of contemporary.
I would definitely recommend books by John Green, Maureen Johnson and Lauren Myracle, as I think obviously the writing styles will all be quite well liked, but I also think that I would definitely recommend Sarah Dessen, books like The Truth of Forever, Lock and Key, Just Listen, because I think the style is quite similar. It's all a bit contemporary, all a bit romantic and cute, and I think you'd really enjoy it. But I think it's hard to recommend books because it will sort of depend on which story is your favourite as to which books you're sort of more intrigued to, because they all have very different unique styles. But yeah, I just think that Sarah Dessen would be good, or either of the authors of the stories that you really enjoyed the most.
Having read both John Green and Maureen Johnson before, I can happily recommend both of those authors. With Maureen, I've actually only read her Shades of London, which is kind of paranormally, it's very creepy, very atmospheric. Although from that you can get a hint that she is able to kind of build up the romantic tension as much as the hide behind the cushion while you're reading tension. So I'm really interested to actually look back and read some of her more contemporary stuff. I actually have some sitting on my shelf unread. And obviously we can recommend anything by John Green. I am myself going to be investigating some more of Laura Miracle's work. From a Christmas festive story, the real classics, A Night Before Christmas and A Christmas Carol. For me, a book that I can't help but think of as festive and would happily reread again and again is The Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis.
So that wraps up all of our thoughts on Let It Snow. If you have read this book and had any other thoughts and comments, do leave them below and we'd love to hear your thoughts and see if you agree with us or disagree with us. Also to let you know, our next book read is The Witchfinder by Ruth Warburton, and that will be going live on the last Tuesday of January, the 28th. And also, as one final announcement, we also now have a Goodreads book club group, which I will leave the link to down below. Do come and join the group. We'd love to have you there. We'll be discussing all of the books on that page and other things. We're also trying to decide what to read for our February book at the moment, so if you have any suggestions for us or if you want to get involved, do let us know. Also, if you make any comments on the Goodreads page and you do want to be included in our videos, feel free to do that as well. So basically that is everything for this video. Witchfinder next month, and we're looking for a February one, so do join our Goodreads group to help us know. And because it's Christmas Eve, I'm also going to wish you a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. See you later guys, bye!